3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. 4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Coming up at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific time today, from the Michigan Wolverines, one of the best players in college football, and is going to be a top 10 pick in this upcoming NFL draft. Will Johnson will stop by as Michigan found a way to get it done in the Big House to save their season up against the USC Trojans on Saturday. We'll get into a bunch of college football later. I got Stuart Kovacs. I got Moist Mike with me. We're rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. However, I got to start the show today talking about the big three in the NFC, because I went into the weekend wanting to know how the Eagles would respond off their just terrible loss on Monday Night Football to the Atlanta Falcons. We knew that the Eagles were walking into New Orleans and marching into New Orleans to go up against the Saints on Sunday. I wanted to see how the Lions, coming off a loss, were going to respond in a tough spot. Arizona was starting to move in the right direction, and the Lions ended up getting the job done. And then I was curious about the San Francisco 49ers, who lost last week to Sam Darnold and the red-hot Minnesota Vikings. And I was curious how that 49ers team would respond. Even though the Niners are banged up, the LA Rams were in worse shape, and they were even more decimated by injuries. And I walked away from those three games yesterday: Eagles, Saints, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Rams, and the Lions and the Cardinals. And I'll just say this. The Eagles, I'm really concerned about their coach and Nick Sirianni. The Lions, I think out of the three, I felt the best out of those three teams in the NFC yesterday. And then the 49ers, there's just an it factor missing right now. And I'm curious when they're going to get that back. So let's start off with the Eagles. Nick Sirianni, I just don't get him. I am sorry, folks. He should not be the coach of this team. When you are 10-1 a season ago, and I get it, they were in the Super Bowl the season prior to that, but things could change rather quickly, especially in Philadelphia. Hey, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, had a season where they got to the divisional round after that, then they made a wild card round, misses the playoffs one time, and then he was out of a job. So things could change rather quickly. So I don't care that Sirianni was in a Super Bowl and then the following season they're 10-1 when you win one game down the stretch and don't even make it out of the wild card round. I thought he lost the locker room, and I know the players like him, but he is clearly a doormat, and I think that he is not the right guy for this job. And you saw it in some stupid decision-making on Monday night, and I'm not talking about the play call to throw the ball to Saquon Barkley, but in the opening drive of the game, he had an easy opportunity to take 3 points, and he didn't do so, and he could have used those 3 points on Monday night. So I say all that, and I reset all that, because he is in a sloppy game on Sunday where his offense really couldn't find the rhythm, and his defense is bailing him out. And as a coach, I want you to learn, I want you to adapt, and I want you to not repeat the same mistakes. And at the end of the first half, there is a difference in being aggressive and just being reckless. And Nick Sirianni was reckless, absolutely reckless and stupid at the end of the first half. His team is up 3-0. Points are not flying off the board in that contest. And 4th and 1 at the 15-yard line of the Saints with 14 seconds left, you kick the field goal. It is not worth it to go for it in that spot. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the game on my couch. And I'm like, kick the field goal, kick the field goal, kick the field goal. And that knucklehead puts his team out on the field, his offense out on the field, and he didn't get it. All right? If you want to freak out and scream about that, trust me, I did that on Sunday. But then he had a halftime to think about his mistake. And as egregious as it was at the end of the first half, mistake number 1, I thought it was even worse to open up the second half after your team just couldn't convert on 4th and 1, and you had the previous conversion fail a week ago as well. And right out of the gate, in the second half, it's 4th and 3. And this bozo thinks the third time's a charm when you go back to last week and then you follow it up with what happened at the end of the first half. And he elects to go for it on 4th and 3 and doesn't get it when the ball was at the 34-yard line. So he passed up on 6 points in that contest. And he passed up on 2 field goals that would have been easy field goals to make. And then the funniest thing out of this, after passing up on all those field goals, and I get it's 4th and 11, but this is with about 6:40 left in the game. It's 4th and 11. You're at New Orleans' 42-yard line. You're only up by 1 point. Your defense has been the story of the game. And he puts Jake Elliott out there to kick a 60-yard field goal. I know, right? We look at field goal kicking in domes differently now. And even outside of domes, and people now like 50-something yards, it's an easy, no doubt about it, makeable field goal. But when you pass up on a field goal on 4th and 1 at the 15 and then 4th and 3 at the 34, this dude, Nick Sirianni, on 4th and 11 at the Saints 42 for a 60-yard field goal says, Jake Elliott, let it rip. It just doesn't make sense. And the payoff there is to go up by 4 points. If your defense has been that great, which they were in the game, punt the ball. And you play field position in that spot. Instead, he kicks the field goal. It never had a prayer. It was not even close. And the Saints get the ball, and they march right down the field. In the short amount that they had to go, and they put the ball in the end zone. Now, the Eagles end up winning the game, but they didn't win the game because of Nick Sirianni. They won the game in spite of Nick Sirianni. And quite frankly, Nick Sirianni, after the game, on the flight back, should have been writing thank you notes. Should have wrote a thank you note to Saquon Barkley for his magnificent rushing performance. He redeemed himself from the blunder a week ago. Should have wrote a thank you note to Dallas Goedert. Oh, Dallas Goedert. The Eagles remembered that he was on the team. Last week, I'm sitting there at the game. I'm like, why aren't they using Dallas Goedert? Nick Sirianni should also be writing a thank you note to Vic Fangio and that defense. Jalen Carter finally showed a pulse. And also, still you like this. And I know it's a tough day for your Raiders as they lost to the Panthers. But he should be writing a thank you note to Derek Carr. Because when Derek Carr had to do something with the game on the line, boop, Derek Carr couldn't get the job done. So I walk away from that game yesterday how I felt about the Eagles walking into this season. They have a lot of talent. They are a good team. But this coach who doesn't do much, he doesn't call the plays, right? He's not a defensive-minded coach. He has no relationship with the star quarterback in Jalen Hurts. He could still mess up a game or come close to messing up a game with his aggressive, reckless, and stupid decision-making. So I look at the Eagles. If they're going to win this year, it's going to be in spite of Nick Sirianni. And I was ready to go. Do you know what the take would have been today if they would have lost that game? I would have fired Nick Sirianni on the flight back. And I would have hired who? Bill Belichick. I know that's tough in season, but that's what I would have done. That's how fed up and disgusted I was with Nick Sirianni. Now, let's go to the Lions. I thought the Lions were actually going to lose yesterday. I thought that was going to be a high-scoring affair where the Lions basically had to be dragged to the pit of misery before, right, they get these glory days. And the Lions are a team where they start off with the opening game victory, Sunday Night Football against the Rams in overtime. Then week 2, they were underwhelming up against the Buccaneers. I thought that the Lions had to drop this game. People would panic, and then the Lions would start to show the football team that they're capable of. But the Lions showed me yesterday how they're going to win games this year. And it's going to be with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs running and catching the ball out of the backfield. And that defense, which we wonder what that defense could be entering this season, I think that defense is better than it's advertised, and Aiden Hutchinson is really starting to put it together and taking that step from being a good player to being a great player. With all that being said, here's why I'm encouraged by the Lions yesterday. Because I really did think that game could have gone either way. The Lions, to me, I know, right, they paid Jared Goff, and everyone's like, oh, Jared Goff now is a franchise quarterback. The way that I look at the Lions is similarly to the way that I looked at the Tennessee Titans when they had Derrick Henry and they had Ryan Tannehill, and they went on that run for a few years of being a really solid team, but they're better than that. And what I mean by that is how Ryan Tannehill was used on that team they didn't win necessarily because of him, but they found a way to win with him. And there were some good moments. There were some mistakes and turnovers. But when push came to shove, like I remember being in New England for that Patriot-Tennessee playoff game, Ryan Tannehill stepped up and delivered a big third down throw. And you saw that yesterday. Ryan Tannehill, I think he found Amon-Ra St. Brown for 18 yards on third down and 11, and he stepped up when he needed to. So to me, if the Lions play like that, where their offense is predicated off the run with Montgomery and Gibbs and that offensive line, and Goff is a little bit more, or even so, a game manager, with that defense getting better week in and week out, and Goff can make a timely clutch throw, then yeah, that's a team that could win or could at least bare minimum get to a Super Bowl with that formula. But let's get to the 49ers as we breeze through these three teams, the Eagles, the Lions, and the Niners. That's a Niners performance yesterday that it just shows in the early stages of this season. I'm not saying the 49ers can't get to a Super Bowl. I'm not saying the 49ers can't win the Super Bowl. But the San Francisco 49ers had a lot of distractions this offseason. And in week one, it didn't impact them. Even with McCaffrey out, they stomped the New York Jets. But then in week two, they lost to the Minnesota Vikings. And then you have, McCaffrey, he goes on, runs CMC the IR, and he'll be out for a bare minimum of 4 games. You got Deebo Samuel, who's going to miss a few weeks. And you need some other guys to step up. And there's a lot the next few weeks riding on Brock Purdy. And also, I don't think this guy has gotten enough attention and hasn't been blasted enough for his first 3 games. But how about Brandon Ayuk? I know Ayuk dropped that ball and Peyton Manning lost his mind on the Manning cast in week one. But Brandon Ayuk, basically told you he was an elite wide receiver this offseason, wanted to be paid as such, and then eventually got the deal and never really wanted to go to Cleveland, never really wanted to go to New England. He wanted to go to Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh had nothing in return that could really appease the 49ers, in my opinion. I know they say, that was so close, and then Ayuk went in there and he was about to get dealt to the Steelers. He's like, no, let's get a deal done. But after getting paid through the first 3 games of the season, Brandon Ayuk is not living up to that contract. First 3 games of the season, he has 11 receptions on 20 targets for only 119 yards. 28 receiving yards against the Jets, 43 against the Vikings. And when they needed him yesterday, he had 10 targets, only caught 5 footballs, and had 48 yards. And hasn't found the end zone yet. That is an underwhelming, and I mean a significantly underwhelming start to the season for a guy last year in Brandon Ayuk that had over 1,300 yards receiving. And he's got to get going. And that 49ers team, there's a mental component of it when you get so close, and also a physical component too, for so many years and yet so far. And through the first 3 weeks of the season, you didn't see it in week 1, but in week 2 and week 3, when there are some injuries, this team is looking flat right now. And yesterday, they had no business in losing that game. I get it. You had the drop. You also had Moody miss a field goal. And it left the door open for the Rams. But the Rams, you thought the Niners are banged up? The Rams are the walking wounded. They got no Cooper Kupp. They got no Puka Nacua, and you let Tutu Atwell beat you? So that's a performance yesterday. And thankfully for the 49ers, they play the Patriots next week. But after that, we're going to learn a lot about the Niners. Because they go through a stretch where they got some good games, man. After that, they play Arizona, Seattle, who's 3-0. You play Kansas City. You got Dallas, Tampa Bay, Seattle, Green Bay, and Buffalo. That takes you through December 1st. Those are some good games. And I know last year, the Niners got banged up. They lost 3 games early on in the season in a row, midway through, and it didn't kill them. I'm not saying that the 49ers are donezo. That would be crazy. They could still absolutely get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. But through the first 3 weeks of the season, and it's funny because in week 1, that was a statement. But in week 2 and 3, after you exhale a little bit and unfortunately you suffer some injuries, they're lacking that it factor. And yesterday was a game that is even more concerning than the Vikings game, because it was a game that they should have won. It was a game that felt like it was gift wrapped to them, and they just rejected the present and found a way to now give the LA Rams some life. Because that was a Rams team that was on the verge of going 0-3. They get a gritty victory. They are now 1-2, and they play a Bears team who could be the most underwhelming team in football so far from where the expectations and the excitement was. So in all likelihood, the Rams went from being into the casket to now jumping out of the casket, and if they take care of business on Sunday, they'll have some life at 2-2 after what it looked like was moments away from being 0-3 to start the season. So the Eagles, I don't trust their coach. The Lions showed you their formula to win yesterday, and the 49ers, you wonder, can they go through this again and then take it a step further with the last 2 weeks showing signs that they have been a sloppy football team right now, and they have not looked like the 49ers of old. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Between those three teams in the NFC, the Eagles, the Lions, and the 49ers, who's the team through 3 weeks that you have the most confidence in? There's reasons to doubt all three of those teams, but I'll say it's the Detroit Lions. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. You can always find me on social media at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We'll come on back. We'll take your calls. Also, I'll give you 5 takeaways from the college football over the weekend. And Will Johnson from the Michigan Wolverines, who had a pick six and a huge victory up against USC, is going to join us coming up in an hour from now at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. But first, football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. And Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app right now and use promo code SCORE, that's SCORE, and your first deposit will be doubled with a credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. A lot of craziness from college football this past weekend. We will delve into it right now. I'll start off with Michigan over USC, as Will Johnson from the Michigan Wolverines, one of the best football players in the country, is going to join us coming up in an hour. That's a game that showed you that after Michigan lost to Texas, I'm not saying Michigan didn't deserve to be criticized, but the criticism went to a level where people thought Michigan was a bad football team. That's just far from the truth. And then on the other side, you look at USC. USC had a very good victory right out of the gate up against LSU. But I think the praise of USC went a little too far. And people thinking that USC was a great football team rather than the fact that people just undersold USC going into this season and they showed that they could be a good football team. That's a game on Saturday, though, that if I'm a USC fan, it once again just makes me question, where are we going with Lincoln Riley? Because with Caleb Williams, right, the first year you made it to a Pac-12 championship game, you lost. The second year was an absolute disaster. And now, just when you thought the defense was turning the corner, you let Kalel Mullings just run all over you. And the tackling was horrendous by the USC Trojans. And I look at the Michigan offense. Michigan won a game where they only threw the ball for 32 yards. Like, I know how Michigan is built. I know how Michigan is set up this year to have a shot to make the college football playoff. But if Samter or Stu would have said to me before the game, Zach, Michigan was only going to have 32 passing yards in the game, I would have said, how many points did they lose by? But that's how great Mullings is. And I've said this now for pretty much the entirety of the offseason. And then I also said it early on in the season. Their best running back on the roster is Mullings for Michigan, who used to be a linebacker. And Donovan Edwards, he is a good player, but he's not a lead back. And I know that Donovan Edwards went off when Blake Corum got hurt, and we saw what he did up against Ohio State 2 years ago. But last year, Donovan Edwards was one of the more disappointing players in college football during the regular season from where the bar was set and what he was expected to do. But then in the national championship game, he popped off, and we went back to just ignoring what Donovan Edwards was for most of the regular season. And I think no one has been more spot on about Donovan Edwards than me. because I didn't have high expectations for him in the regular season last year. I said he was going to go off in the national championship game, but this year, when he's expected to be the number one back, he's just not. Mullings is the best back on that team, but there's still a big role for Edwards, but Edwards is your all-or-nothing back. But with the game on the line, who ended up matriculating the ball down the field? It was Mullings. Edwards popped off for a big run in the game, but Mullings gets the ball. He basically takes it from his 20 to the other team's 20. And then with the season on the line for Michigan, because in your first 4 games, if you start the year off 2-2, I'm not going to have much expectation that you're going anywhere. And with the game on the line, everyone knew who the ball was going to, and Michigan did what Michigan does best, and that's play bully ball. And Mullings put the ball in the end zone. But you saw it, that Michigan's going to win this year with defense and a run game. Eventually, they're going to have to get something out of the passing game. And Alex Orji is eventually going to have to start throwing the football and having some success to do so. But it's one of those games where if you're a Michigan fan, that's how you're going to win this year. You're going to give your fans a sports version of a heart attack, right? The sports version of a heart attack, but that's how it's going to happen. Through defense, turnovers, Will Johnson getting a touchdown, his second of the season. I know they had the big fumble that unfortunately then they lost. But those type of players, whether it's Colston, whether it's Grant, whether it's Mason Graham, Will Johnson, they're going to have to be the story. And then Mullings and Edwards are going to have to make big plays. And eventually, as the season does progress, you got to get something out of the quarterback. Outside of Orji just running, he has to find a way to throw the ball. And you got to get more than 32 yards. So USC, they fall back down from the mountaintop a little bit. They come back down to earth. And Michigan pops back up where they're saying, okay, can Michigan be a team that is like 10th or 11th or 12th and make the college football playoff? They can. But it's going to be those games where the margin of error is razor thin, but the way that they're going to win is defense, turnovers, and then breaking off big runs in the running game on the offensive side of the ball. So that's takeaway number 1. Takeaway number 2, Nebraska is going to be really good, but Nebraska just isn't quite there yet. And that was a moment after the praise on Friday night going into that game, Nebraska this, Nebraska that. And hey, you guys know me. I love that Nebraska program. But I even walked into the game saying Nebraska has no business being an 8.5-point favorite up against another top 25 team. I just did not think, I thought Nebraska was going to win by like 3 or 4. I did not think they ever should have been an 8.5-point favorite. I thought the play was to plus the points with the Illini. And Nebraska had a good first half. And when they got the score before the end of the first half, it was almost like they shut down. And there was moments in the second half where Raiola finally looked like a freshman quarterback. And there were opportunities where they could have won the game. The defense finally showed up late, and Raiola just and the offensive line too, just couldn't find a way to deliver. And then in overtime, Nebraska wins the coin toss. Illinois marches right down the field in the short amount of field that they did, and then Nebraska started going the other way. I think people forget how young Raiola is, and he's a true freshman, but he looked so great in the first 3 games that you didn't think that there was ever going to be a mistake, and that's just not how this happens in this sport. Now, I still look at Nebraska. They should be able to win their next 3 before the Ohio State game, so they still should be 6-1, but that was a win by Illinois where their quarterback played great. Bielema doesn't get enough credit. It just reminds you that it's not going to overturn and change overnight for Nebraska. There's still some work to do, but I still believe, as I said, going into the season, that football team will get to a bowl game for the first time since 2016, and they will be an 8-win team. That's what I had, and we'll see what they'll do moving forward. But you are probably discouraged if you're a Nebraska fan, but that's just the growing pains when you are utilizing a young quarterback who is a phenom and is a sensation, but he's going to have some games where he does look like a freshman quarterback, and that happened in the second half. I think the thing to watch for Nebraska, though, in the first half of the 4 games that they played this year, Nebraska has outscored opponents by a score of 96-20. In the second half, though, they've been outscored 31-30. So Nebraska gets out to big leads, and then the big lead up against the inferior opponents can play out in the second half. But when you go up against another top 25 program like the Illini, it comes back to bite you in the you-know-what. All righty. Takeaway number 3. All Kyle Whittingham does is win. It doesn't matter what conference you put this guy in. All he does is win. And you could take away his quarterback. Cam Rising hurt once again. Didn't matter. They're going up against an Oklahoma State team, which, by the way, where the heck has Gordon been this year? He has not. I know he's their running back. He's playing. But he has not had a good game this year, really, that you've been blown away with what he was been able to do a year ago. But it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. It doesn't matter where you play the game. All Utah does under Kyle Whittingham is win. And for years, he was viewed as the most underrated coach in the country. Now, if you don't have him in your top 5, you're bleeping crazy. Number 4, Travis Hunter through the first 4 weeks of the season is the Heisman Trophy winner. The Heisman Trophy goes to the most outstanding player in college football. I think right now there's at least like 10 guys you could consider. But as a Heisman voter, I know this, you only get 3 votes. I would say right now, if you had to make 3 votes, it would be Travis Hunter, it would be Ashton Genty out of Boise State, and then Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. But if you go by and it's very tough for a defensive player to win, but Travis Hunter plays both ways. But if you go by the definition of the most outstanding player in the country, look at what Colorado did. I know it's up against Baylor. They almost lost. It would have been a disaster for Coach Prime. Shador, after almost throwing one Hail Mary that was dropped, then throws another one that was caught for a touchdown. Extra point is good. You go into overtime. And in overtime, they score. It looks like Baylor's about to get in the end zone. And right as the ball's about to go over and in for a touchdown for Baylor, Travis Hunter lays the wood and boom, fumble. So he had the game-winning fumble forced, and he also had 7 receptions for 130 yards. And he's been magnificent, obviously, on both sides of the ball. Travis Hunter put on a Heisman performance up against Baylor. And then 5, the last takeaway here before we get to the update with Dak. Tennessee, their win up against Oklahoma, it was really impressive because we talked all about Oklahoma's defense and can Brent Venables' defense slow down Nika Iamaleava? But I walked away really impressed by that Tennessee defense and what they were able to do up against Oklahoma. And now you look at Tennessee through the first 4 games of the season. They're 4-0. They beat Chattanooga 69-3. They crushed NC State at the time. They were ranked 24, 51-10. They beat Kent State 71-0. And then you go on the road and you beat Oklahoma by 10 points. I look at Tennessee. You can make the case that they only have 1 loss at the end of the season. And I'm talking about the regular season. Here's the Tennessee schedule the rest of the way. Arkansas, win. Florida, win. You play Alabama, Kentucky, win. Mississippi State, win. You play Georgia, UTEP, win. Vanderbilt, win. So you look at it, at worst case, Tennessee's only going to have 2 losses. But if this team is a national championship contender, which a lot of people believe they are now, you should be able to split and get 1 against either Alabama or Georgia. So Tennessee, a great season for them in the regular season, only have 1 loss. And I don't think that's crazy to say. And walking into this year, I don't know how many people predicted that Tennessee was only going to have 1 loss at the end of the season. But Heupel's awesome. It was so emotional for him to go back to Oklahoma and get that win. You saw the scene in the locker room after the game. The quarterback, the young quarterback, man, we are blessed to see him as he's just phenomenal. But that defense stepped up in a big way up against Oklahoma, and I thought they were the story. And also with Oklahoma, you had Dylan Gabriel, and from what Chris Plank kind of said, Dylan Gabriel, they wanted to go to Jackson Arnold. They didn't think Dylan Gabriel was going to come back. Then he says, I'm interested in coming back. They wouldn't guarantee him the starting job, so he goes to Oregon, and Jackson Arnold got pulled after going 7 of 16 for 54 yards and an interception. Think about that. I know Boomer Sooner fans would much rather have right now Dylan Gabriel than Jackson Arnold. And Michael Hawkins comes in, and he was 11 of 18 for 132 yards and found a way to put the ball in the end zone. So those are my 5 takeaways from this past weekend in college football. All righty, well, come on back. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment the News Brief. But first up, with the latest Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash, here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with life, electronic device, and pet health insurance. Sam Darnold is finally thriving. Got some encouraging news today with Test John, the Vikings quarterback, showing just a bruised knee and no structural damage. Following the Raiders' loss yesterday, head coach Antonio Pierce said he hasn't ruled out a quarterback change this week. There are 2 games tonight in the national spotlight on Monday Night Football. First up will be the Jaguars and Bills in Orchard Park. Buffalo is off to a nice start at 2-0 and lower expectations after 4 straight division titles. Josh Allen and company are playing well, but not about to take the Jags defense lightly.
Last couple times we've played them, they've gotten the best of us. So taking that into account, obviously a new D coordinator there, but they're flying around. They're playing real solid together defense. Got guys with a lot of motor, and they don't let up. So we're gonna have our hands full, but good week of practice and put our best foot forward out there Monday night.
The second game of the night features the Commanders and 0-2 Bengals in Cincinnati, which will have T. Higgins back in the lineup. 4 games on the schedule tonight in the major leagues, including the Phillies looking to wrap up the National League East. They host the Cubs with their magic number at 1. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining.
1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
It's time to ask the pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. We will be joined by Will Johnson coming up at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific from the Michigan Wolverines after their huge victory up against USC, where he had a pick six in the game. But one real quick note here, and I guess all the transitions that are going on in the college landscape right now. There is a source-off right now where there's been reports that Gonzaga has a deal in place to leave the WCC for the Pac-12. Now, that wouldn't get them up 2 more schools for the football that they need after the announcement from the other week where the Pac-12 was coming back with Oregon State and Washington State adding Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State on the football side, and obviously for their other athletic departments as well, or the other departments in the in the business of the athletics of college sports, the other programs. But there was an idea that Gonzaga was going to be going to the Pac-12, and that centers around basketball. There has been some pushback on that, so we'll have to wait and see. Now, there was also another idea that schools like Memphis or USF or UTSA or Tulane was going to go leave the American and get scooped up by the Pac-12. Well, those 4 schools today said they are staying in the American Athletic Conference. So if you're keeping score at home, the American schools aren't going for now, and we'll wait to see what happens with the future of Gonzaga. As you know, from at least the football perspective, that they're going to need 2 more schools in the Pac-12 that have fully functioning football programs as well. Okay, without further ado, I'm not talking about Freddie Adu. It's time to update you some of the biggest storylines in the world of sports with some audio. Let's get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, let's start it off with Patty Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes not happy with this play so far this season, even though the Chiefs are undefeated.
I feel like I haven't played very well, and that's not a stats thing. I just feel like I'm missing opportunities whenever they're out there and not throwing the ball in the exact spot I want it to be at. So it's about me getting back to my fundamentals, putting our guys in the right position, and then we got to execute at a higher level offensively.
Here's the thing. Last year, the Chiefs didn't play all that great on the offensive side of the ball, and it was still good enough to beat everybody else. Can you replicate that once again? I know they're back-to-back champions. They're still 3-0. The Falcons couldn't find a way to get a victory. The Ravens couldn't find a way to get a victory. It's like you go through and you see how close these games are. Even the Bengals, who have had their number, and they still keep on winning. But when does that catch up where the offensive side of the ball, which continues to be sloppy, prevents them from winning a game? And you saw it where they had that lead up against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. Mahomes and company ran out of time, and they had that blunder at the end of the first half, and then it cost them in the second half. But can anyone outside of Cincinnati, I know they lost to Cincinnati lost to the Chiefs this year, can anyone else but the Bengals step up and put the nail in the coffin on the Kansas City Chiefs? But that is scary when Mahomes even says he's not happy with his play, and you still look at the standings, you're like, oh, they haven't lost yet. We'll get to the Cowboys stuff coming up at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so I'll save Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott. But let's go to C.J. Gardner-Johnson as he talked some trash after the Eagles found a way to beat the Saints yesterday.
We knew he was going to give us one all game. Like, everybody want to bet on, they thought they had us on a little 7 route to Olave. Okay, cool, but ain't nothing go over our head all day. Oh, cool, it's cool. It's cool. We got the best secondary, best D-line, best front seven in the league right now. And I'm popping it. And I'm popping it because at the end of the day, they said we were down and out. They thought about last week. Now look at you now.
That's been the top offense in the league coming into today.
Man, we're in top what? Top what? Top what? Top what? Top what? Ain't nothing to get over that top from shout out to Slade, shout out to Q, shout out to Vontae, shout out to Reed, shout out to Ringo, shout out to Coach CP, shout out to Coach JK. Hey, man, the best secondary in the league. If that's the case. Listen, we keep receipts. A white little baby say can't be with. Excuse my language, but that's what it is. When we do our job, we can't be with.
I know the Saints started off 2-0, but the Saints aren't this great team. And to try to claim that you're the best defense in the league when your defense got embarrassed by Kirk Cousins last week and they marched right down the field for 70 yards to put the ball in the end zone, just stop it. Like, I'm not saying don't be excited after a win, but C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that was insufferable to listen to. And not only that, there was a play in the game yesterday where the Saints got a first down, but he put a big hit on someone, and he celebrated after allowing a first down. It was just mind-boggling. Here is Matt LaFleur. Give credit to the Packers. They lost their first game of the season. Looked like they were going to be without Jordan Love for a while. Love's been out the next 2 games, but he practiced towards the end of last week. And they've won 2 games now with Malik Willis. Here is Matt LaFleur on the growth of Malik Willis in the short time he's been with the Green Bay Packers.
What he's been able to do is I've never seen something like this. So hats off to him. Hats off to everybody around him. Guys rallying, having his back.
I think it's great coaching. Now, I don't think Malik Willis is now all of a sudden this really good quarterback. I think it's the coaching of Matt LaFleur that's been on full display the last 2 weeks. Stu, we joked about it all week.
We did.
We joked about it all week that it would be so Raider-like after coming off a great comfort-behind victory up against the Ravens for the Raiders to lose to the Carolina Panthers after everyone was laughing at the Carolina Panthers all through the week. And not only did the Raiders lose, they got blown out by the Carolina Panthers. Here is Antonio Pierce after the game.
The team just didn't seem to show up tonight.
No, they didn't. I think as the game went on, I don't think it was a team. I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions. And we'll make business decisions going forward as well.
Who do you think he's talking about there, Stu?
I saw a lot of people on X talking about Devontae. I don't think it's Devontae. I think it's
I don't
defense.
either.
I think it was defensive guys.
Because Devontae Adams, he looked upset.
On the interception,
yes.
It was a miscommunication. I don't think he quit.
No, but I'm saying he looked upset all throughout that game.
Sure, yeah.
But I appreciate that he at least had passion and energy. I don't think that was a lack of a want to by Devontae Adams. He just knows he's great and his team stinks. So I don't think that was Devontae Adams. I think that's a lot of Jets fans, right, in a smart way, saying, oh, let's stir some stuff up here and let's try to find a way to get Devontae Adams out so he could go over to the Jets, Jets. But yeah, I would probably say that's more on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I did see that a few moments ago, Antonio Pierce left it open to maybe a quarterback change happening this week. Have you seen enough of Gardner Minshew?
I don't think it's his fault. I think they can't run the ball. They can't play defense. The offensive line stinks. I don't think going to O'Connell changes much, if anything at all.
You know, it's kind of crazy. They got rid of Derek Carr, and they really had no plan at quarterback. And then you get rid of Josh Jacobs, and you really have no plan at running back.
Yeah, I think it's more of the line, though, than the running backs themselves. They have nowhere to go. There's no holes, nothing.
It's fair. Let's go to Brian Callahan. He's lost the first 3 games. Will Levis continues to be a nightmare. Now it's turning into a joke where you just look on the sideline anytime there's a Will Levis mistake to see if the coach is going to implode. Here's the coach of the Tennessee Titans.
We're an 0-3 football team. I'm an 0-3 head coach. It's embarrassing and disappointing. I've got to be a lot better than I've been, and this is frustrating and unfortunate and not what I thought we were capable of to start the season.
I wonder what the non-public version of that is when he doesn't have to speak to the masses. I feel like whenever he walks into a locker room, it's F-bomb after F-bomb because we've seen F-bomb after F-bomb publicly on the sideline. All right, here is Shedeur Sanders. This was interesting. They had a great come-from-behind victory. We all know about the Hail Mary. Travis Hunter then at the end knocking the ball out to secure the victory for the Buffaloes. Here is Shedeur Sanders talking to the media.
Where would you say your sense of resiliency comes from? Feels like you keep popping back up there time and time again and just don't really flinch. Where does that come from?
You don't have an option. That comes from your parents, how you was raised. You know, like you don't have an option to fail. Like that's a non-negotiable. So it's like, you know, when people say what's your plan B, no, it's only football. That's the only plan there is. I don't have a trust fund. Dad ain't set me up good like that. But I'll make sure I set up my kids, you know, with a trust fund and everything.
Yeah, that's kind of tough to listen to. I get it. Deion Sanders made his kids work hard, and it wasn't just throwing out cash all around. But you definitely have advantages when your father is Coach Prime. And Shedeur's a heck of a quarterback. I think he's a top 10 pick in the draft. But to make it out like he wasn't born with some advantages, come on. You know, there's a lot of players that could say what Shedeur said and actually have been through that. Shedeur has not. And finally, here's Brent Venables, the coach of Oklahoma, on benching his quarterback, Jackson Arnold.
He's a tough young man, and he knows he needs to be better. And again, this is a game of performance, and he'll have the opportunity to go right back at it again here this week. And he's a great teammate. He's a selfless guy. Again, nobody's harder on him than him.
Now, well, Coach, do you regret just not guaranteeing the job to Dylan Gabriel? I know, Oklahoma's been so blah. It's funny. They go to the SEC with Texas. Everyone's talking about Texas. No one's talking about Oklahoma. You finally have a moment to prove yourself with Oklahoma going up against a very good and a national championship-looking team in Tennessee. And Oklahoma was just brutal, absolutely brutal in that game. They just, like, for this year, I know they were ranked 15th in the country going into this game, so it seems weird to say that they're irrelevant, but they feel very irrelevant right now in the college football landscape. And that's crazy for the brand that they are. But this year, I just really have no expectation of greatness for Oklahoma. All righty, hour number 1 in the books. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, how about them Cowboys? That was a typical drama Dallas choking Cowboy game yesterday. Also, Will Johnson's going to join us from Michigan at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. We're back in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. I will get into the Dallas Cowboys and the Baltimore Ravens in just a second, as I don't feel great about either of those football teams. But the Miami Dolphins, who are without Tua Tagovailoa for the next 3 games, right? He missed yesterday's game, even though he was there up against Seattle. Seattle is 3-0. You saw Skylar Thompson get hurt in that game, but you know that they need to make a move at quarterback. It can't be Skylar Thompson for the next 3 games. I don't even know where he's at from the injury that he suffered yesterday. And also they brought in Snoop Huntley, Tyler Snoop Huntley, who is a Pro Bowler, but that just shows you how much of a joke the Pro Bowl has been for the last decade. But, Stu, I just saw that Adam Shefty was on the ESPN with the great Pat McAfee, and he threw out 3 names that the Dolphins have to go get. One of those guys they have to go get. Now, I don't know when Tua's going to come back. He's eligible to return 3 games from now, so it would be 4 games from now because he's got to sit out for 3 more games. But even when he's eligible doesn't mean that he's going to necessarily play. So for the Miami Dolphins to go, I guess, be competitive this year, And hey, it's always tough because there's never a great option here. Adam Schefter threw out 3 names that are currently on other teams. So that takes Ryan Tannehill out of it.
Right.
Where I'm surprised they haven't brought in Ryan Tannehill yet. But their next 3 games, they play Tennessee on Monday night. This is what we have to watch at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, which, by the way, tickets are as low as $26. We have the Miami Dolphins and the Tennessee Titans. Jeez, that's a stinker. Then on October 6th, you have Miami up against New England. Oh, maybe my Pats could win a game. And then you have Miami and Indianapolis. So it's not murderer's row on that schedule before Tua Tagovailoa could potentially come back against the Arizona Cardinals on October 27th. And I don't even know if he'll be back by then, quite frankly. But who do you think the 3 names were that Shefty threw out? All 3 are currently on different teams other teams.
I'll say Jimmy G is one of them.
Jimmy G is not one of them.
Okay.
I think 2 of them you could get. One, if you get Stu, I will give you $100 in cash.
Jeez.
I'll even give you $200 in cash if you get this other name.
All right. Bryce Young.
Bryce Young was not thrown out there.
Oh, my God.
By Adam Schefter.
Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew was not thrown out there by Adam Schefter. Do you want a hint?
I'll take anything at this point.
Okay. Think about what the Vikings have done with Sam Darnold. And I know that there was other stops, but a lot of people blame that team for messing up that quarterback. So who is another former Jet quarterback?
Zach Wilson?
Yes, that's one.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's how low
They've got to get Zach Wilson? That's going to make things better?
Jeez.
Okay.
I think Zach Wilson didn't do a lot of good things in New York, but if you put him with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, maybe he could look competent. Maybe he could find his glory days back at BYU. All right, you got Zach Wilson.
Russell Wilson.
That's the other one, which that should be Justin Fields' job for the rest of the season. And Russell Wilson wants to play. And I know that he's still hurt right now, but I think that's more so they're kind of coddling Russell Wilson when they know they have to keep on starting Justin Fields. Now, do you think you get the last one?
This is the one that I'll never get.
I'll give you $200 if you get this.
Is he your current starter?
No. I'll give you. I don't even know if you get 3 more guesses, but I'll give you 3 guesses.
Okay. Trey Lance.
Good guess. No. Good guess, though. I wasn't even thinking about Trey Lance. Give you 2 more guesses for a chance to win $200.
Okay. Jarrett Stidham.
Obscure name.
Yeah.
But no.
Okay, not the guy.
I didn't even remember this guy being on a team.
Oh, that's not good.
Like, I knew he was in the league. He's not an old guy, but I was like, when he said the name, I go, what team does that guy play for? One more guess.
Interesting.
Tommy
DeVito.
Good guess. I like the obscure names you threw out there. All right, so the 200 is off the table.
Okay.
If I gave you the team,
sure.
I don't even think you could get this.
Sure.
The Cleveland Browns. Who would you think right away if I say Cleveland?
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say Jameis Winston, who's serving as the backup there. But it is Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Wow, okay.
That's the name that Schefter threw out there, the former UCLA quarterback, who is now in his 2nd year in the NFL. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. What an obscure 3 names. Like, if you would have had me guess those 3 names, like, you could, once you get Zach Wilson or Russell Wilson, you'd be like, oh, last name Wilson, okay, I'll throw the other Wilson in there. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I guess that's just, hey, give him a few plays, have him run around with those playmakers, and you hope to create things off some speed. Okay, let's get into the Cowboys and the Ravens. I thought it was the easiest prediction I've ever made, which, by the way, give credit to Trista Crick. She was 3-0 last week. I was also 3-0 last week. So Trista goes 3-0, I go 3-0. We were 6-0 on NFL picks. We also picked 2 of the same games, and we had no clue that either of us on who we were picking. But I look back at that game. It was set up for the Cowboys to be horrific at home, and it was set up for the Baltimore Ravens after snatching defeat from the jaws of victory going back to last week up against the Raiders to go on out and get a victory. With even that being said, though, that was an ass kicking for pretty much 3 quarters, where that Cowboys defense, stop telling me how good the Cowboys defense can be. Derrick Henry did whatever he wanted. He had 151 rushing yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson found the end zone. The Ravens as a team ran for 274 yards and 3 touchdowns. Lamar, he only threw the ball 15 times, and they were in command of that game. But you know what makes that game so sweet, Stu? It'd be one thing, right, if the Cowboys at home, in front of all those cockroach Cowboy fans, if they just see their team get blown out, like how they saw their team get blown out up against the Green Bay Packers in the wild card game, how they saw their team just get blown out up against the New Orleans Saints last week, and then, okay, you leave in the fourth quarter, you hit the exits early, and you go and you get in your car and you beat the traffic. But they sucked them back in. Like, there was a moment, I already danced on the grave of the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. In like about the third quarter, I was putting out all these tweets. And then in the fourth quarter, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I forgot how the Ravens, they just can't protect the lead. And that even goes back to last year. Like, I know we looked at the Ravens as a force. There was one game last year, I want to say, was it against Cleveland early on in the season, that the Ravens just gagged the game away, and it was ugly. Really, really ugly. There were moments last year, it was Cleveland, and then also, I want to say Indianapolis, too, where they lost games. You're like, how the heck did they lose those games? But you look back at that performance, and you see the Ravens yesterday. I'll ask this question, Stu, and I want to hear your answer, because I may have a different response. Do you walk away feeling good about the Ravens yesterday? They were 0-2 going in. They looked like a dominant Super Bowl contending football team through the first 3 quarters, but how they let up in the fourth quarter, and the Cowboys were so close, but yet so far to finding a way to go steal that game. It's like I walk away and I was ready to praise the Ravens, but after like the way the fourth quarter happened, it's like, Like, I know I didn't like the Cowboys going into this season. And through the first 3 weeks, I haven't seen anything, even after that week 1 tease job up against the Browns, that makes me think that, okay, the Cowboys are really different. But I walk away from yesterday's game saying, well, the Cowboys are what I expected, and the Ravens, they have a dominant quarterback and they have a dominant running back, and their defense can look really good, but they just don't have a championship swagger to me. Because a championship team like the Baltimore Ravens, they don't allow the Cowboys, when they were done and dead, back in that football game. And they still won, and they needed the win. And the Ravens next 2 are up against the Bills and the Bengals, and we'll see if they could snag one against either of those teams, which is not an impossible ask. But, man, I walked away yesterday saying what the Ravens did in the third quarter basically evaporated into thin air with how bad the fourth quarter was.
I agree with you. I walked away saying, okay, they took care of business in terms of getting the W and not falling to 0-3, which could easily be 1-4 or 0-5. Who knows after 5 weeks in the games they have. But again, it's just, you're right. They have Lamar, they have Henry, both amazing players. The line is suspect. I saw it a lot when I watched them last week against the Raiders. Raiders were getting to Lamar a good amount. He didn't have a great game. And then again, like, there's just something missing, and the defense is fine. I don't know if it's a defense's fault. It's not Lamar's fault. It's just the surrounding cast, especially the offensive line, I do have my concerns about.
And I also think there's something mentally going on with that team, where they know they're a good team. They know that there's not going to be many moments this year in the regular season where you praise them with the guys that are still there from a year ago, where they were a dominant team in the regular season and then bleep the bed in the postseason. But up against the Raiders, like, Stu, how they lost that game last week?
I still don't know.
Yeah. And then the Raiders, they followed up with getting blown out by the Carolina Panthers and Andy Dandy Dalton? Like, huh? And then you look at this one on Sunday, you couldn't play a better game than what they played for the first 3 quarters, and they almost lost. Or they were in danger of that game getting out of their control. And they're lucky that the Cowboys couldn't convert the 2-point conversion. Because if they did, That's a completely different ball game. That takes it from 10 to 8. But that was a game yesterday where you just look at the Ravens and it's like the little things that they just don't do that championship teams do oh so well. And it was wild because through 3 quarters, everyone's like, all right, Ravens are back. Ravens are great. And then really the takeaway in the fourth wasn't necessarily bash the Cowboys, which we all love to do. It was more some, just when you start to buy in on the Ravens, they show you why they're a good team, just not a great team. Let me hear, though, from Jerry Jones after the game. This was Jerry Jones, and I was saying all the way going back to last year that, hey, the Cowboys should go sign Derrick Henry, and they didn't do so. Here is Jerry Jones when he was asked if he regrets not signing Derrick Henry.
Watching Derrick Henry do what he did, it didn't make you rethink your approach to the run game?
We couldn't afford that.
Why not?
I don't know. Why can't you buy a mansion when you live in a different kind of house? We couldn't afford it. We can't make that all fit. It's as simple as that.
He's such an asshat. I'm sorry. He really is. Stu, you thought I was going to say something that you were going to have to dump. No.
I sure did.
Jerry, it's like you think we're a bunch of idiots. Everyone in America told you to get the deal done with Dak Prescott before free agency. Everyone told you that. And why did they tell you that? So you can move around and open up more money and divide it your way so you could actually be all in. And you failed to do that because you're all about being a drama whore. That's what you are. And you want to just drag out the Dak storyline and you get the deal done with Dak on the Sunday when the season opens up. You could have got that deal done right before free agency opened up, and maybe you could have actually got Derrick Henry. So that's just a blatant lie. Let's hear from Dak Prescott, though, on what went wrong versus the Baltimore Ravens.
It's a game that we've got to go score 30 in. We know it. We didn't do it. Started late. That's the biggest part of it. The penalties, some errors, I guess you can say, just whether it be alignment, whether it be assignment, we've got to be cleaner.
It's the same old, same old. You could say the same thing up against the Packers in the wild card round, the same thing up against the Saints in week 2, and yesterday that team was so flat. And they dug themselves into a deep hole, and the crazy part is they almost climbed out of it. It's like right when they were about to get out of the hole, they just got smacked right back in. Jeez. You know, being a Cowboy fan, that's got to be miserable. Your team, they're shot. Like, they're not going anywhere this year. And you just committed all that money to the quarterback, who's good, not great. Micah Parsons hasn't got his yet, and he was irrelevant in the game yesterday. CeeDee Lamb just got paid, and he hasn't shown up yet really this season. And you know that the coach is going to be gone at the end of the year. And this team they got worse. Like, this should not be a surprise to anybody. They got worse. They'll still be able to dress it up. I don't think they're going to the playoffs, but they can still go get like 9 wins or something like that. But this is just not, like, you know how I usually say a lot of times, they're not a great team, they're a good team? I don't even know if the Cowboys are a good team. Like, I really think the Cowboys are like an average team that whenever you start to think they're going to put it together, they fall flat in their face. You know what the Cowboys are? The way that I talk about Derek Carr. It's like, fine, you could do worse. And you could do that much better. Yeah, you could do better, but you could do worse. And whenever you start to praise them, boop, they just fall flat on their face. So I don't walk away yesterday feeling great about the Ravens nor the Cowboys, and I don't really expect much out of either of those teams moving forward. All righty, Michigan, they got blown out a few weeks ago up against Texas. Their season was on the line up against USC, and they had a big performance. We will talk to one of the stars of the game, Will Johnson, who had a pick six, his second pick six of the season, and he's one of the best players in college football when the Zach Gelb Show returns in 5 minutes. Sports fans, listen up. 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, and bladder leaks can be a side effect. That's why Depend is teaming up with the Prostate Cancer Foundation to encourage screening, because health is a long game, and it's yours to win. Now, here's the cool part. Through November, Depend is contributing up to $300,000 to prostate cancer research by donating 40 cents for every purchase of shields, guards, and Real Fit products. Boyd in Mississippi. Learn more at depend.com.
You're in a 4.5 minute break. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Alrighty, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Let's go out to the guest line right now. Michigan had a huge victory on Saturday in the Big House up against USC, and we welcome in one of the best defensive players in the country who had a pick six, and that, of course, is Will Johnson, who's kind enough to join us once again on the Zach Gelb Show. Will, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
I've been great. Even better after the win.
Yeah, and you had some performance on Saturday. Take me through that pick six, which was the third pick six of your career at Michigan.
Yeah, it was really just a mix of instincts and just the preparation throughout the week, kind of knowing what they might give me. And, yeah, just once I saw the quarterback look that way, I broke on the ball, and it was a perfect situation after that.
I know you guys are defending national champions, so I don't think the defending national champs need a confidence boost. But with that being said, last year's team is different than this year's team. A lot of people are counting you guys out after the performance up against Texas a few weeks ago. What do you think Saturday did kind of say to the rest of the college football world about the team that you guys have?
I think really just let everybody know we're still a great team. We're still continuing to learn who we are, continuing to get better each and every week. It's just new players, new coaches. So, I mean, that was a bump in the road, and we're just trying to go 1-0 every week and get better every week. That's our goal.
What does a win like that do, though, for morale in a locker room and also confidence for what you guys are trying to build this year?
Yeah, win is always huge. I mean, a loss can do something to you, and we don't lose a lot around here. So, definitely is not a great feeling. And winning is what we're used to, and we want to keep it that way and keep everybody together and keep everybody on the same page. So winning is always it always helps with that.
Will Johnson is my guest. I got to ask you about Kalel Mullings, who had an unbelievable performance. He had a great performance, even if the last drive didn't happen. But we know when it was crunch time, planted players make planted plays. He did that, putting you guys in good field position after the big run. And then with the game on the line, he puts the ball in the end zone. Just kind of describe what you saw from Kalel Mullings on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he just showed he's somebody we can depend on, especially in those moments when it really matters. I mean, that's kind of one of those moments where season was on the line. I mean, we had to get a win, we had to get a touchdown, and he carried us all the way down the field. So, got a lot of trust in that guy, and look forward to a lot of great things the rest of the season.
How about that dynamic between him and Donovan Edwards? Because it seems like they feed off one another, and it's a very healthy competition, which means a lot of rushing yards for your team.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love the way they're handling that situation. I mean, they're very supportive of each other. They're getting, I think, pretty much split carries. And they're both doing pretty well with it. So as long as we can continue to have success, continue to keep winning, and continue to keep getting better, I think nothing but great things will happen for both of them.
I know it was out of your control, but when you're on the sideline for that fourth down play call, right, we all knew where the ball was probably going. It was going to Kalel Mullings, and it was a deserved opportunity. Just how did you kind of process it, kind of watching it on the sidelines when that was all going down?
Yeah, well, I was actually back up in the tunnel getting x-rays, and I was watching on TV. And when you're back there, you can kind of hear the crowd before you see it on TV. So when I saw him lining up and I heard the crowd go crazy, I had already knew he scored, and I knew where the ball was going. I knew they were about to follow behind the best fullback in the country, and Brad. And yeah, I'm just happy we were able to finish that drive strong.
Yeah, I know you got x-rays and you didn't return. So how are you feeling right now? Just wondering.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Obviously something to work through, but I'll be all right.
You think you're going to be able to play coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just taking it day by day and see where it ends up, but I'm not 100% sure yet.
What is the injury? Just wondering. Do you know?
Yeah, something on my shoulder.
And then how you feeling today?
Feeling good, feeling better.
Gotcha. Will Johnson here with us. Let me ask you about your quarterback, Alex Orji. When I talked to you in the offseason, you were raving about what he can be. Obviously, he wasn't the starter to begin the year, but now has taken over the reins as your signal caller. We know what he could do as a runner, but you seeing him day in and day out, just what do you think he could develop into as a passer? Because usually don't see teams win a college football game when the quarterback only has 32 yards passing.
Yeah, I mean, he can do just as much with his arm as he can do with his legs. Just really wait on the right opportunity for him to be able to show it. He's shown us all of that during camp, and I got nothing but trust for him to make those explosive plays. And I know he can do it, and I've seen him do it. So I'm just excited, and I trust the coaches, whatever their game plan is and how they want to attack it each week. But he definitely has it in him, and whenever he's able to show it, I'm sure he will showcase it.
Will Johnson is my guest. Let me talk about some of your other players on the defensive side of the ball. Josiah Stewart transferred in 2 years ago. We know how he's continued to grow with this team. How do you kind of just look at his growth from the last 2 years with the Michigan program?
Yeah, he's always been a great player. I mean, he's really just been waiting his turn, and now it's his time. So he's going to continue to eat. He's going to continue to be hungry and eager to go get that quarterback. And I see a lot of great things coming out of him and D. Moore and the rest of the D-line this year.
Yeah, well, I follow a lot of mock drafts, and I always see your name in the top 10, in the top 5. I also see Mason Graham's name in the top 5, in the top 10. If I'm an NFL general manager, right, and you'll get this question when you eventually go to the combine, they'll ask you, about Mason Graham. Just what do you want to tell them about your teammate with you guys really being linked together for the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, it's no question who the best D tackle in the country is. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's a freak. He knows football very well. He's put himself in a lot of great situations out there, and he helps out the rest of the D-line a lot too, more than you know it. So, I mean, he's going to continue to have a great year. And I just know wherever he is this year, next year, and I've seen it for so long and against so many different dudes, I just know he can do it on any level, and he's the best D tackle in the country.
Well, we know you're going to be called early in the draft, and so is Mason. I'm also starting to think Kenneth Grant is going to be a first-round pick as well. It's weird because I watch every Michigan game. You know, I'm obviously wearing the Roman Wilson sweatshirt right now, so I'm a big fan of your program and what you guys have been able to do. So I know how good of a player Kenneth Grant is, but really I think the rest of the nation may not realize it yet, and he could be a tad underrated. Just what do you want the nation, since we're a national show, to know about Kenneth Grant on the defensive line?
Yeah, it's hard to say Mason's the best D tackle in the country when we got KG sitting there right next to him, and he's right there too. But yeah, I mean, he's very underrated. I mean, I wouldn't say underrated, but he definitely is also right up there for that talk of the best D tackle in the country. And he continues to show it. I think he might have had 2 sacks this week too, and a bunch of quarterback pressures. But he's a freak athlete. I think if he might not have fumbled on that one play, he might have took that to the crib, showcased that speed a little bit. But yeah, I think he'll do great things, and he'll continue to do great things this year and continue to show that. And it only helps when you got the best 2 D tackles in the country right next to each other. They're able to kind of eat off each other and feed off each other too. So Kenneth's going to be great. Like I said, like Mason, wherever he's at and whatever situation he's in.
Will Johnson is my guest. I want to ask you about yourself. We know how highly touted you are. We know what you did all of last season. You had the big interception coming out of halftime of the national championship game, and there's so many positive things which is being said about you, which is nice, but I don't sense any complacency. So just wondering, in this offseason, what were you trying to get better at, and what were you trying to do as you were getting ready to gear up for this season?
I think this offseason, my main focus was being a better leader, being there for my guys. I know I was going to have a bigger leadership role this year, and I was focusing on getting my body to 100%. I haven't really been at 100 since towards the end of my freshman year. So just trying to get back to 100% and be the best version of me on that field, the best I can, take care of my body, take care of my mind, be the best I can, close to God and spiritually. And, yeah, be there for my teammates and my coaches, whatever I can. That was my main focus, just be the best version of me all around.
But I saw a crazy stat. So you've allowed 2 defensive touchdowns in your career, and you've had 3 pick sixes. So you've scored 3 touchdowns. So if you haven't even got close to the apex of where you could be, I'm just wondering, like, how far away are you? Like, how much better do you think you can get, even with not being a fully 100% healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always room to grow, always room to continue getting better. So, yeah, I'm just continue to have faith, continue to trust God, continue to attack each day with the same mindset and see where I end up.
Got a few more questions for Will Johnson before we let you run. Growing up, just wondering, who were some football players that you kind of looked up to, or who were some defensive backs maybe through time that you've ended up studying?
I mean, I would say I always looked up to my dad. I mean, he was a DB growing up too, but besides that, really, I feel like when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of different guys, but I feel like now that I really know football and really look at it in a different view, I would say guys like Pat Surtain, and I would really say Pat Surtain. He's the biggest guy I would say is similar to me, and the way I play, the way our style we play, and similar body types and all those type of things. So I would say he's the guy I look at the most.
I know it was before your time, but obviously Charles Woodson was a Michigan Wolverine, won a Heisman Trophy, and we all know he's still very close with the program and he's around a lot. Just how about the relationship that you've been able to kind of stir up with Charles Woodson?
Yeah, he's been a great mentor for me. He's always been there for me and whatever I needed. He supports me in every way, so I'm very appreciative of that. And he gives me words of advice whenever I ask for, whenever we're in that situation. So, yeah, I mean, he's a great player, the greatest DB, I think, to ever play the game. So, continuing to chase him, continuing to trying to do what he did on all levels. And I think wearing that number just makes it even more special.
Well, I saw that on 3 right before you jumped on with us. They put 10 names to watch out for the Heisman Trophy, and you were one of those 10 names. Obviously, Charles won a Heisman at Michigan. Have you allowed your brain to kind of go there? Is that, obviously it's probably a goal to win the Heisman. I know you usually focus on the team, but how about some of that Heisman chatter with you, and what do you want to say to maybe some voters?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great award to win. I think just for me, it's just I'm not really too worried about it. I just want to continue to do everything I can to get me and this team in the best place we can be to continue to win football games. And that's my main focus. Just continue to win games, continue to put good things on the field, make plays, and I think all that will take care of itself. But I think a few reps on offense wouldn't hurt that case.
Yeah, you think you can maybe get some of that Jabril Peppers package and get some touchdowns in there and get some handoffs?
It's been talked about a little bit, so we'll see how it works out.
Well, we'll see. Maybe that will be on full display up against Minnesota. I know you had a pick 6 up against them, so maybe you get a pick 6 this year, and then you go put one in the end zone as well on the offensive side of the ball. Before we let you run, I just want to ask you about Wink Martindale, your new defensive coordinator. And then also, we know he's been around the program for a while, but now he's the head honcho in Sharon Moore. Just how about Sharon as the head coach, and then also what Wink's been able to bring to your defense?
Yeah, Sharon, he's been great. He believes Michigan football. He's been around here for a long time, and he's the best coach for the job. So I'm glad we got him, glad we kept him here, and he's been leading us in the right direction. And I'm excited to see how the season ends up going. But Coach Wink too. I mean, he's a newer guy, so he's been welcoming. We welcome him, I would say, and he's been doing great things for us. He came with that NFL experience, NFL mind. He knows this system. He created this system. So he's been continuing to teach us things, and we're continuing to learn from him and grow off him. And I think we'll continue to get better each week with him.
There's the last thing I'll ask you, and then we'll let you run, Will Johnson. I know that you said that when Khalil scored that touchdown at the end that you were getting x-rays, and we talked about your injury. Were you ever close to coming back in that game? Was that close to happen, or did you kind of knew once you went in to get x-rays that was going to be it for Saturday?
Well, yeah, by the time I got done doing all that and they let me get back and cleared me to go back on the field, it was already Khalil had scored and the game was over. So I couldn't really go back in by then. But, yeah, the game was pretty much over by the time I got back down to the field.
Gotcha. Well, hey, good luck, good health this year, and have a great game coming up against Minnesota. We appreciate you doing this as always.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Let's go out to the guest line right now.
The Infinity Sports Network. His second pick 6 of the season was a big part in that Michigan victory up against USC before, unfortunately, had to leave the game because of an injury. And Kalel Mullings had a huge performance and put the team on his back on that last drive for the Wolverines, as Michigan is now 3-1 after some people thought they were going to be 2-2. Coming off that game against Texas a few weeks ago, a lot of people are penciling in them to lose to USC, but that was not the case, as the Trojans do go down to the Wolverines in the Big House. All righty, we'll take a timeout. When we come on back, Stu's got some questions for me. I got some answers. We'll do some onside, offside when we return. Update time first, though. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Sam Darnold's terrific start won't be derailed by injury at this time. Tests showed only a bone bruise in his knee and no structural damage. Marcus Davenport wasn't as fortunate. The Lions pass rusher done for the year with an elbow injury, and the Raiders' Marcus Epps also suffered a torn ACL and is out until next year. Aiden O'Connell showed a little something yesterday for the Raiders, and head coach Antonio Pierce said he hasn't ruled out a quarterback change this week. Monday Night Football twice as nice with a pair of games to close out Week 3, starting with the Jaguars in Buffalo looking for their first win. Jacksonville has taken a step backward after an 0-2 start, closing out last year with loss in 5 of 6. And head coach Doug Peterson said the national spotlight a great opportunity to turn things around.
I think it's good for our team. I think obviously it's a great opportunity to go on the road. As you mentioned, it's a really a great atmosphere for football. It's a Monday night game. The fans are going to be, juiced up and ready to go, and it'll be good for us.
Tight end Evan Engram, though, is out for the Jaguars. The Bills won their first 2 to open the season. The Bengals and the Commanders are the second part of the doubleheader tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, Stu. Zach Gelb Show, the Infinity Sports Network. You just heard the man. He said onside, offside time. So, Stu, what do you got cooking for me today?
All right, Zach. So Caleb Williams and the Bears fell to 1-2 despite the number 1 overall pick throwing for 363 yards and his first 2 touchdown passes in yesterday's loss to the Colts.
Can I be honest? So I have Caleb Williams in fantasy.
Ugh.
He's on one of my. I have 2 fantasy teams. He's on one of my fantasy teams. I started him yesterday. When I looked that he had 17 points in fantasy, I was shocked because I watched that game. And I didn't think he had that many points. I was actually, after watching that entirety of the game, was kind of surprised that he had that many passing yards. That was not a pretty performance yesterday.
No, kind of deceiving. On the season, Williams now has 2 touchdowns to 4 interceptions for an offense that ranks 30th in yards per game. So onsides, offsides, the Bears are the most disappointing storyline of the season so far.
Great question. The answer is no, and here's why. I get it. The offensive line for the Bears stinks. Caleb Williams has not popped off yet like we expected him to. I'm not ready to say the most disappointing storyline of the season. I have an individual player, and then I have a team that I think are, well, it's weird to say they're better here because it's for 2 people that are playing really poor football, but in order to answer the question, you get what I'm saying. Brandon Ayuk was paid a lot of money this offseason. He was a huge storyline. And so far, through his first 3 games of the season, he has 11 receptions for an abysmal 119 yards and hasn't found the end zone once. He's been targeted 20 times this year, has 11 receptions, 119 yards. 28 yards against the Jets, 43 against the Vikings when his team needed him. With Debo out and Christian McCaffrey out against the Rams, he put up 48 yards on 10 targets. Yikes. So I think Ayuk is a more disappointing storyline. And then the Jaguars to me. Now, I'll see if the Jaguars beat the Bills tonight, and that could save them a little bit. But that football team, if they start off 0-3, where in week 1, they lost the game they had no business losing up against the Dolphins when ATN's about to score, and then you fumble the ball and you open up a door for the Dolphins to come on back, and they did so. And that game was almost over if ATN just gets in the end zone. And then you followed up week 2 against a bad Cleveland team, and you couldn't find a way to outduel Deshaun Watson. That's a bad look. And then if you lose tonight, you start off 0-3. So the Bears, they're disappointing. But are they the most disappointing storyline of the season so far? I would say the Jaguars and the Ayuk situation are more disappointing, so I would go offside.
Offside.
All right, Samter's 2-time defending champion Chiefs.
You can't say that when Samter wore a Jets jersey on, what was that, Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jets beat the snot out of my Patriots. He said he's no longer a Jet fan. He shows up in his Mark Sanchez jersey. And then I don't know if you could put us all up on a 3-shot real quickly on 3 cameras. But then Samter today walks in with a hat that is absolutely enormous. And until Samter just adjusted his hat, you couldn't even see him because he's wearing one of those big hats, and it's a Kansas City Chiefs hat. So that's what we're doing now. Samter is a Jet fan. Jeez. On Friday, and now a Chiefs fan on Monday. It's a bad job. It's a really bad job. All right, what's the question here?
So the Chiefs, they improved to 3-0 thanks to a 22-17 win over the Falcons last night. Now with less than 5 minutes to play in the game and the Falcons trailing by 5, Kyle Pitts dropped a 3rd down pass in the end zone after what appeared to be pass interference on the Chiefs' defense. The Chiefs went on to stop the Falcons on 4th down on the play to preserve the lead. Now, onsides, offsides, that play should have been called pass interference.
Absolutely. That's onsides. There's no doubt about it. That should be called, especially last week where you had a lot of people say, hey, if that was the other way, would that have been pass interference on the Kansas City Chiefs if they were on defense? And I said, I don't know, but it should be called, just like how it should have been called up against Cincinnati Bengals defender. But then you see it go where it wouldn't have gone in the Chiefs' favor and they don't call it. That's textbook pass interference. Any other team gets called that, you're not even facing the quarterback. Your back is turned to the quarterback. That clearly should have been pass interference, and it gives people credence who go, oh, the Chiefs get the calls. Now, it doesn't take away that wasn't pass interference a week ago, because it was, and that should be called, but then it needs to be consistent, and it should have been called on Sunday night last night. So that play should have been called pass interference. Yeah, onsides. I definitely should have.
The Steelers are 3-0 and leading the underperforming AFC North thanks to the resurgence of quarterback Justin Fields. The former Bears signal caller is completing 73% of his passes, including a huge 55-yard scoring strike to Calvin Austin. However, Fields is averaging just 173 yards through the air and just 30 yards on the ground, while the Steelers as a team are 24th in both yards and points per game.
Here we go.
So onsides, offsides, Justin Fields should remain the starting quarterback even when Russ is healthy and ready to go.
Onsides, because he has a higher upside. In the year of 2024, Justin Fields has a higher upside than a washed Russell Wilson. And also, Justin Fields is the more mobile quarterback, and that offensive line isn't up to par, even with them being 3-0. The Steelers can win games this year by that great defense, TJ Watt being the force, being their MVP, and they just need some life on offense. And I think Justin Fields gives more life than Russell Wilson, and I don't think Mike Tomlin should play around here anymore. Stop worrying about Russ's feelings. Stop coddling Russell Wilson. Just come out and say, this is no longer a week-by-week thing. Justin Fields is the guy until we tell you otherwise. That's what I would do. So when you say Justin Fields should remain the starting QB even when Russ is healthy and ready to go, on sides 1,000%.
The Bill Belichick redemption tour is going smoothly as the hoodie impresses with both his knowledge and wit on TV. However, reports say that Belichick wants to coach again, and we've seen plenty of teams who may be searching for a coach in 2025, including the Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, and Bears. Onsides, offsides, Bill Belichick will be coaching in 2025.
I've never felt more confident about a question that's been asked to me. Onsides, 1,000% and then some. The Cowboys job is going to be open. I don't know if the Giants job will be open. It could be. The Bears job will be open. And the Philadelphia Eagles, if they're serious about trying to win a Super Bowl with this group, even though they won yesterday, they would get rid of that guy Sirianni, who was just stupid and reckless yesterday. So, yes, I think there will be enough jobs. People are going to look at Belichick. Oh, he's a different Bill. Oh, he's smiley on TV. He's laughing. Oh, he's conversational. It's a bunch of bull crap just to have the image change, and it's brilliant by Bill Belichick. But it will lead him to a job, and it will get him to land a job a year from now whenever the hiring cycle does commence. So will Bill Belichick be coaching in 2025? Absolutely.
The UNC Tar Heels lost an embarrassing game on Saturday.
Oh, you could say that.
Falling to Group of 5 school James Madison 70-50.
When Sanders texted me, by the way, over the weekend late at night about James Madison UNC, you know that something went horribly wrong in this game.
It wasn't a North Carolina 3-touchdown win.
I was getting texts from Samter. He's like, can you believe what James Madison did to UNC? He's trying to book someone for James Madison. And I'm like, whoa, how about that game? But you can continue. That's how you know it's a big deal.
Yeah.
When you get the late night text from Samter on the weekend.
So after the game, reports surfaced out of the locker room that 73-year-old Mac Brown indicated to the team that he would step down following the loss, but Mac Brown has since refuted that.
I was very disappointed in the game, disappointed in me, and as you all know, I don't handle things well after losses. It's probably the worst times in my life because I'm got a spoiled life. So as I was walking off the field, I thought I'm responsible for all this. It's on me, so I should ask the players about leadership, if they feel good about me moving forward. And that's something I shouldn't do. I shouldn't put that pressure on those young people at that point. And I'm supposed to be a leader, and probably the worst things I've ever said in my life are after losses. And that's just what I do. So disappointed in me. I should have waited, but the kids were overwhelmingly, no, come on, coach, let's go. Let's move forward. And we're doing that and excited about the future and love my job and love these kids. Disappointed in me. I'll grow from it and not do it again.
So onsides, offsides, this will be Mac Brown's last season as the head coach at UNC.
That's bizarre, because I saw that speculation on Twitter, and it was like Mac Brown is retiring. I go, after that loss? I get it's a bad loss, but you're going to retire in the middle of the season? That would be a weak and a lame way for Mac Brown to end his legendary coaching career. But just when you throw that door or you allow that door to get open, to me, that says, okay, it's over. So, yeah, this will be Mac Brown's last season as a coach of UNC. Who knows? He may change his answer tomorrow. He may change his answer a week from now. But right now, I would say on sides. I think this is it at the end of the season.
All right, last one. The Oklahoma Sooners were riding high before getting a rude welcome to the SEC by number 5 Tennessee, falling at home 25-15 to the Vols. After a slow start, starting quarterback Jackson Arnold was benched in the second quarter for freshman Michael Hawkins Jr., who gave some life to the offense. Now, Coach Brent Venables said that Arnold and Hawkins will battle for the starting role against Auburn on Saturday. Onsides, offsides, the Sooners should stick with Hawkins at quarterback this week at Auburn.
I think they will, if you're going to let this be a competition now. But I would actually go offside, and I know it could be stubborn because Arnold so far has been terrible, but I think they should play him in their next game. Remember, they wanted him to be in a competition with Dillon Gabriel, and Dillon Gabriel was interested in coming back, and Dillon Gabriel's like, I'm not competing. I'll just go to Oregon and go be the starter and compete for a national championship, and Oklahoma can't get out of their own way. I think when you could have got Dillon Gabriel back and you didn't because of your belief in Jackson Arnold, you can't give – it's one thing to pull him from a game, but to then not start him in the next game I think is totally different. I would still rock and roll with him, but clearly he's going to be on a short leash. So the Sooners should stick with Hawkins at QB this week at Auburn. I will go offside.
Offside.
All righty, that's onside offside on a Monday. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, there was one team I was dead wrong about in the NFC North. We will give them an abundance of praise when we come on back. And this is looking like a division where I thought before the year they were going to send 3 teams to the playoffs. One team, though, that I didn't have in the playoffs looks like it's going to replace another team inside the NFC North. So we'll get into the evaluation of the NFC North when we continue in 5 minutes right here on the Infinity Sports Network. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, off and running, hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I actually ran into a former Infinity Sports Network / CBS Sports Radio host on Friday night. I was at the Met game. This was not planned. It was planned for me going to the Met game. But I'm walking in center field, and I'm on my way to get the $25 filet mignon cheesesteak sandwich, which, by the way, Stu, I brought one of my friends who is a Phillies fan to the Mets-Phillies game. And the stadium was absolutely packed. You know, sellout, last homestand of the year, just absolutely jammed moving around that stadium. So it's a good line. Like when we went, even to it was a highly populated attendance in the Mets-Yankee game, we didn't have to wait that long. To get in, it took a little bit. But for the actual cheesesteak, which I thought was $18, I was surprised it was $25. But for ballpark food, it was definitely worth it. It's a very good sandwich. If you're going to spend money, you may as well spend money on something good instead of, like, I don't know, paying $12 for a hot dog or whatever. But nonetheless, it was a long line. That was when I think the Phillies scored like 8 runs in the end. It was the one game the Mets lost to the Phillies this weekend. And I'm in center field, and I'm walking, and I'm navigating through traffic. And out of all the people that I could have run into, who do you think I ran into at the game? I got tapped on the shoulder, and I got a, "Hey, Gelb, what's going on?" Who do you think it was? What former Infinity Sports Network / CBS Sports Radio host?
So it's a former, like, full-time host, Monday through Friday host, or no?
I'll just say it's a former host. I'm not going to give you the answer here. Former host.
I don't know. Scott Farrell?
How great would that be?
That would be amazing.
See, the weather is killing me right now. Hot to cold, cold to hot. So I fear if I do the Pharrell imitation right now, my voice will be shot for
feels
the
like
next
a
58 minutes.
Bad idea, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm always good for a bad idea. Yo, Gelb, what's up? How you doing? Shake it up. No, it was not Scotty Pharrell. Right ballpark, though.
Right ballpark. Interesting.
You're in the weekday lineup.
John Feinstein? I know.
Nothing against John. What would that conversation be like? I know John, but that would be a rather boring conversation. You know, John Feinstein would probably talk my ear off about some top 25 team in college basketball and then ask me if I've seen Hoops Weiss as of late.
DA.
Yes.
Okay.
It was DA.
We got there.
DA in center field. So we had a nice little 5-minute conversation.
Should have known. He's a Mets fan, so yeah.
He has like a partial plan in center field, and then I let him get back to hanging out with his dad. Now, he drove from Warwick, where he lives, and he said the traffic was so bad, when I saw him in the third inning, that's when he was getting to the ballpark.
Sounds like me trying to get to Philly.
Yes. And if he went to center field to get the filet mignon cheesesteak, it was better than whatever cheesesteak you got in Philadelphia, if we're being honest. All righty. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Let me take one here. You can always get me on social media at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB on Instagram and Twitter. I will get to my point about the NFC North in just a second, but let me go to Chris in California first. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, Zach, how's it going? I don't know if you remember me or not, but I called you last football season about Kenny Pickett going to Philly.
Chris, how do you think I could forget about you? Because you suggested, as you just said, and it was a bizarre prediction at the time, but you said when no one was talking about this, Kenny Pickett to the Eagles, and they should make that move, and then it happened. So there's some calls I'll forget. That's one that I would never forget because it was, I thought, so bizarre, but you ended up being 100% correct in terms of that they ended up getting the deal done.
Right, and for the past 3 weeks now into this season, you could probably see why. It's not Nick Sirianni, okay? Nick Sirianni was brought into Philadelphia with his hands already tied behind his back. Carson Wentz already wanted out. Howie already drafted, and this is also Doug Peterson's draft pick, Jalen Hurts. Going back to Andy Reid picked Donovan McNabb. Also, Chip Kelly got Sam Bradford. And like I said, Doug Peterson selected Carson Wentz, or helped select Carson Wentz. Give Nick Sirianni a little bit of a leash here. His hands are clearly tied behind his back. Give him an opportunity with Kenny Pickett to operate this offense. And Kenny Pickett doesn't throw away the ball. He doesn't turn over the ball. He's very smart with the ball. So if you put him with this O-line...
You know he has 13 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, right?
Yeah, well, with the whole offense was ran around the running back there, Harris. It was like that team was built backwards. It was focused strictly on the defense. And
so you're telling me Kenny Pickett bench Jalen Hurts, who at one point outplayed Mahomes in a Super Bowl.
Here we go again.
But
I mean, how many times
it's true. Tell me anytime. Hold on. You're going to say how many times we're going to have an excuse for Jalen Hurts, but every time we bring up Kenny Pickett, you have an excuse for Kenny Pickett.
He had a season and a half of an opportunity compared to 5 years.
And when has Kenny Pickett ever looked like Jalen Hurts in the NFL?
You can see he has the tools. You need to put him in the right system. And with him being with this O-line, with this talent, he can elevate these players to the next level. These players are elevating Jalen Hurts, and he's barely squeaking by. We're lucky we got Saquon Barkley. We're lucky because if we wouldn't, we would be 0-3 right now.
Chris, I think you have a point. And the point is, yes, Jalen Hurts has to take care of the football better, and he has to make better decisions. But to say that Kenny Pickett should usurp Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback right now, I just think is so ridiculous. And I'm not going to trash you here on your point because you said that they were going to get Kenny Pickett when no one else thought that was even a possibility. But the mobility is such a big part of this offense, and Jalen Hurts will remain the quarterback not only for that, but also for many other reasons. And also, he's just a better player than Kenny Pickett. Like, Kenny Pickett's best season of his life was when Pitt won the ACC. Even with that being said, Jalen Hurts has been a Heisman Trophy finalist. All right? Jalen Hurts has played in a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying there isn't a conversation to be had that Jalen Hurts needs to be better. He needs to be better. He's making too many mistakes. But why would, like, if there was another quarterback on the roster that had upside and had a proven track record, I'm not even saying I would suggest it, but I could at least entertain it. But in this case, I can't entertain that. And Jalen Hurts is your franchise quarterback. You've paid him all this money, and I know Carson Wentz, you paid him all this money, and then you eventually had Jalen Hurts replace him. But Kenny Pickett was in Pittsburgh, and he failed in Pittsburgh. They gave up on him. They didn't want him. They'd rather have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. You know, if Kenny, let me ask this, Stu. Not that the Steelers are winning right now because of Justin Fields. I think he's been fine. He's just not messing it up. He's being a game manager, and he has some mobility, some upside. If Kenny Pickett was the quarterback of the Steelers right now, are they 3-0?
Definitely not. They're probably 1-3.
They'd probably lose the first game of the season, I would say. So, what do you mean 1-2?
1-2.
Yeah,
they would have won 1 out of 3 games. This
that
that
was some Zach Gelb Temple math right there.
Yeah,
where,
it was.
Where I have been rubbing off on you. So, I want to know what Chris's affinity is next time he calls us up for Kenny Pickett. Because I've accused him before of being related to Kenny Pickett, and he's told me he's not. But he's an Eagles fan. It's not like he wants to see it sounds like it from the phone. It's not like he wants to see the team do poorly. But I don't see how you could say that Kenny Pickett needs to start. You know what's going to happen now. Since Chris was right the last time when he called me up saying, they need to replace Jalen Hurts. They need to trade for Kenny Pickett. Now, he was partially right. They traded for Kenny Pickett. He hasn't replaced Jalen Hurts. But I hate to even say this because it's just like a crappy thing to say. Watch, Jalen Hurts will get hurt and miss like 2 games, and Kenny Pickett will go like 7 touchdowns to no interceptions. And then Chris will be calling me up like, who's the idiot now? So I'll tell you that. I was not expecting that phone call through 3 weeks of the football season. 10 minutes after 5 o'clock, after the Eagles have played 3 games this season. They're 2-1 now. I have criticized the Eagles. They were terrible in game 2. And then the other day, Jalen Hurts didn't play this magnificent game. And I thought Sirianni's coaching was terrible. But come on, what are we doing? Saying Kenny Pickett should start over Jalen Hurts.
Maybe that he should be on Schefter's list for Dolphins quarterbacks.
Yeah. You know,
Can't be worse than Zach Wilson.
Schefter's not even suggesting Kenny Pickett get traded to the Dolphins. I don't think he's going to be replacing Jalen Hurts. So I'm just curious by this. Jalen Hurts had 311 passing yards in the game on Sunday. I'm just wondering, when you look at the stats for Kenny Pickett, I go to game logs right now for Kenny Pickett on ESPN, and it gives you nothing because he hasn't played in a game this year. But I went to previous seasons, and it wouldn't even give me anything as well. I'm just curious when the last time, I'll go to Football Reference, that Kenny Pickett, and it may be, like it's not crazy in this era of the NFL, when he had 311 passing yards in a game. Because it was ugly. It was really ugly in Pittsburgh. Let's see. He never had 300 passing yards last year. Oh, my God. With the Steelers?
Might be in college.
Let's see. Yeah. His highest passing game with the Steelers was 278. 278. And that was in 2023. Let's see 2022. It's only 2 years with the Steelers, so it's not that huge of a sample size. All right, he had 327 and a 38-3 loss up against Buffalo. He's had 1 300 passing yard game. And you're saying that he should replace a guy that was in a Super Bowl 2 years ago and individually outperformed Patrick Mahomes, who's the standard in a Super Bowl. We'll stop the conversation there. All righty. Evaluating the NFC North. Stu, let me ask you this. Going into the season, I had the 4 teams ranked in the NFC North as such. 1, the Lions, 2, the Packers, 3, the Bears, 4, the Minnesota Vikings. What was your preseason rankings for the NFC North?
Packers 1, Lions 2, Bears 3, and then Vikings a distant 4th.
And we could both agree, after the first 3 weeks of the season with what we've seen so far, that the Bears need to be the 4th team in this division.
Yes.
Okay. How do we now rank 1, 2, and 3? Do you still have the Packers as your 1 team? I'm saying how you project it the rest of the way.
I still do, only because Love has been hurt, so it's been tough to kind of judge them. Obviously, he played pretty much that whole game against the Eagles, which they lost, but I want to see more of what they are with Jordan Love when he's healthy and back. So I would still project them as 1.
I actually agree with you now. I was Lions 1 to start the year, Packers 2, Bears 3, Vikings 4. After 3 weeks moving forward into the season, Bears are 4. I'd put the Packers in at the 1 spot. And it's not me saying the Lions are going to be a bad team, because I think the Lions are going to be really damn good. But this is a quarterback-driven league. And what I saw from the Lions against the Cardinals is their game plan to win is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, which is fine. And the defense needs to be good, led by Aiden Hutchinson. But Jared Goff is getting paid to be a franchise quarterback, and it looks like he's going to be a little bit more than a game manager. And he made a big 3rd down throw yesterday to St. Brown, so give him credit to that. But there were moments in the game where you're like, Jared Goff is just a guy, not the guy. It's like Ryan Tannehill when he was with Tennessee, just on steroids, is the way that I would say it. Like, that's the way that I kind of view that. And Goff is also, to his credit, he got the Rams to a Super Bowl, and he got the Lions to an NFC Championship game. But I look at Jordan Love. He's the best quarterback in this division. And the Packers have enough on offense. You know, Josh Jacobs is really damn good. There's no elite wide receiver, but they have like 3 or 4 guys that are just good wide receivers. And that defense, with a new defensive coordinator, is looking pretty damn good. So I would say the Packers are 1, and it's more so my belief just in Love over Goff. Lions would be 2. And I would still put the Vikings in at 3. And I'll get to my evaluation on the Vikings in just a second. I'm shocked, by the way, that we have not heard from Scott in California, because he used to call me after every Vikings game. I'm actually worried. I hope everything's okay with Scott, because like him not calling after, he would tell me, why are you dogging the Vikings when they stunk? So now when they're winning and they're 3-0, and Sam Darnold, he's looking like an MVP candidate. Scott in California is hitting me up at 855-212-4227. I hope Scott's okay. But, Stu, how would your rankings be 1 through 4, and how you think it's going to be the rest of the season?
Yeah, like I said, I still think Packers 1. I will still go Lions 2. I just think they're still a very good team. I think the Vikings are a lot better than I thought. They're pretty close to that Lions spot, but I think they would be 3rd, and then the Bears now are probably the distant 4th team.
The next 5 weeks, the Vikings have 4 games because they have a bye week sandwich in between. Listen how fun the Vikings schedule is. They play Green Bay this weekend. Aaron Jones going back to Lambeau Field. Then they have the Jets. It's a shame that game. Now, it would have been in Minnesota anyway. But it's a shame that game, I think it's in London. It's one of those 9:30 a.m. Eastern time kicks. That's against the Jets. How awesome would that have been? Sam Darnold in MetLife Stadium with the Vikings going up against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Then the Vikings play the Lions, then the Vikings play the Rams. We will know what the Vikings are and how legit the Vikings are at the end of, that's a Thursday night game on October 24th. Because you smack the Giants, that's one thing. Yeah, you're expected to do that. You beat the 49ers, thumbs up. Then, okay, maybe it was just a 1 week, like kind of wonder. But then they just beat the Texans. And they didn't just beat the Texans. They beat the snot out of the Houston Texans. And I think most of the national praise is directed towards Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell, as it should be. But how about national praise for Brian Flores? Now, I don't know if he'll be a coach again in the NFL because of the lawsuit, but he should be. He absolutely should be. And I know it was a messy situation with him and Tua in Miami. But that defense is playing their ass off. You only lost 17 against the Niners, 6 against the Giants, and 7 against C.J. freaking Stroud and the Houston Texans. That's a heck of a job by Brian Flores. So I think the Vikings are in a good spot. I think the Vikings will make the playoffs. I still think Green Bay's better, and I still think Detroit's better. But the NFC North, it's going to send 3 teams to the postseason. But we're going to find out, are the Vikings just good or are they great after these next 4 games against Green Bay, the Jets, the Lions, and the Rams. But how about Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell, our guy, Justin Jefferson, and Brian Flores? It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll come on back with No Huddle Offense. But first, football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you could win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money, and Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, that's S-C-O-R-E, and your first deposit will be doubled with a credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it's legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
You can always stream the show on YouTube, where a lot of people are reacting to a phone call we just got where a caller said, play Kenny Pickett over Jalen Hurts. And some of the reaction, John Lean says, Jalen Hurts threw for over 300 yards yesterday without Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Billy Wolf says, this is Kenny Pickett's dad. Chuck Engine said, Chris is Pickett's agent. And one other message that I got in the YouTube chat, which was good, we were talking about Sam Darnold and how that game, too bad that we're not going to end up having Sam Darnold go up against the Jets at MetLife Stadium. And Two-Tone Tony said, Sam Darnold would have been seeing ghosts if the game was at MetLife Stadium. Some good messages in the YouTube chat today. All righty. Without further ado, let's go to a little no-huddle offense.
Touchdowns, sacks, upsets, and last-minute heroics. Another NFL Sunday is in the books, and we've got you covered with the biggest plays and sound bites from another wild week in the National Football League. It's time for No Huddle Offense on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, we'll start it off in the ATL. The Chiefs find a way to get a victory 22-17 up against the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins was 230 yards in the game, had a touchdown and a pick. Bijan Robinson only had 52 total yards and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes, not a prodigious passing night, only had 217 yards. 2 touchdowns and a pick. Rashee Rice did have 12 catches for 110 yards and a score, though. Travis Kelce, a pedestrian season out of the gate, had 4 catches last night for 30 yards, only 8 catches and 69 yards and no touchdowns on the season. The Falcons had 2 opportunities late. One, the officials missed a pass interference call that should have been called, but it wasn't. Would have put the ball right at like the 1-yard line. And then late, as the Falcons were driving down 22-17, which was the final score. On 3rd and 1, they handed the ball to Tyler Algier, not Bijan Robinson, got nothing. And then on 4th and 1, they just ran a bad play call, like out to the left side. I think I'm handing that ball to Bijan Robinson on 3rd down and 4th down. That's back-to-back weeks, though, that Bijan did get stuffed. Now, I ended up winning the game last week in Philadelphia, but he was stuffed by C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and then this week got stuffed once again, but I thought the play call just never really gave the play a chance. So let's listen up to that stop. This is the Chiefs defense. Steve Spagnuolo once again coming up big to get a 22-17 win over the Falcons.
Cousins will be under center on 4th down and a yard to go. They give it off. Bijan Robinson hit in the backfield. He goes down. Kansas City holds on downs again. Nick Bolton scrapes to the outside and makes the hit. And Kansas City defensively holds on downs. 4th down at the 6 and now the 13. Preserves a 22-17 lead at 51 seconds to go in the game.
So there you go. That was the way that game did go down between the Chiefs and the Falcons. Stu, what's the question from this one?
Zach, do you think the Falcons are the best team still in the NFC South?
I would have said Tampa Bay last week, but then Tampa Bay got embarrassed by the Denver Broncos. Congratulations to the Panthers, but I'm not going to get all delirious after one win up against Stu's pathetic Raiders. And the Saints, I think the real Saints showed up against the Philadelphia Eagles, where they're just not that good as they played through the first 2 weeks of the season. Here's what I like about the Falcons. I like their secondary, their offensive line, and their offense. It's a work in progress. They got to use the talent that they have. Arthur Smith didn't do that on the offensive side of the ball. Didn't use Bijan Robinson enough. You got to get Kyle Pitts more going. Drake London's looking really good. But get him more in the middle of the field is what I would do. Use his big frame in the middle of the field. I think the encouraging part is they are 1-2. They could have won that game, and they probably should have won the game up against the Chiefs. But Kirk Cousins still isn't 100%, and I think he's going to get better and better as the season goes along. So, yes, I do think that the Falcons will end up winning the NFC South. All righty, the next game, we will go to Jerry's World, where the Cowboys are on a 2-game losing streak at home. They lost the playoff game where they got blown out by the Packers, and then they also got blown out last week up against the Saints, and it looked like they were going to get blown out in this one. At one point, they were down 28-6, but then the Cowboys put up 19 points in the fourth quarter. They still lost by a final score of 28-25. The Cowboys are now 1-2. The Ravens are also 1-2, but Baltimore gets their first victory on the season. Dak Prescott in this one had 379 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and he does lead the NFL with 851 passing yards, but how empty of a stat is that? CeeDee Lamb, underwhelming performance, underwhelming start to the season, had 4 catches for 67 yards. Micah Parsons only has 1 sack on the season, was awesome in game 1, has been silent ever since, had 0 sacks yesterday. And the Cowboys in this one allowed Lamar Jackson to go 12 of 15 for 182 yards and a touchdown. Also, Lamar had 87 yards on the ground and a rushing score. Derrick Henry was phenomenal, 151 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. And the Ravens as a team had 274 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. The Ravens defeat the Cowboys 28-25. And let's listen up as Derrick Henry had a 26-yard touchdown run. This made it 28-6.
Isaiah Likely, the tight end to the left. That gives to Derrick Henry, running right up the middle. He's got a hole. He's to the 15. Henry to the 10. The 5. Touchdown, Ravens! The train is rolling, and the King scores again.
So there you go. The Ravens offense showed up in the first half. Cowboys were late to that party. Only 6 points, 217 yards in their first 8 possessions, and they got going in their last 3. But it was too little, too late. 19 points for the Cowboys, 211 yards, and 3 in their final 3 possessions. All righty, next stop, 49ers and Rams. It looked like the 49ers. Oh, sorry, Stu. Give me your question here on the Ravens and the Cowboys.
Yeah, so for the Cowboys, which is more to blame for their struggles, their offense or defense?
I think it's the defense. They couldn't stop anybody. It's like, what disease would you rather have? But I do think it's the defense. They just got embarrassed defensively up against the Packers last year. They got embarrassed at home with their defense against the Saints. And then they got embarrassed early on against the Ravens. It puts the game so far out of reach. Yeah, both sides need to play better, but I would say it's more the defense than the offense. All righty, we'll keep it moving. Let's go to the 49ers and the Rams from yesterday. This game looked like it was going to go the 49ers' way, and the Rams looked like they were on the verge of going 0-3 to start off the season. Now the Rams have new life. They're 1-2, and they will play the Bears this upcoming week. But Jake Moody missed a field goal. That would have made it a 10-point game, and that would have made it a 10-point game with a little under 3 minutes to go. The Rams quickly got a touchdown. It was set up by Tutu Atwell on a big 50-yard play. Kyron Williams got the score, and then the Rams ended up getting that field goal as it was late and the clock was winding down, and the Rams escaped with the victory at home 27-24. And let's hear that game-winning 37-yard field goal that secured the Rams the victory.
Final 5 seconds of regulation. Cardi from 37 to win it. The rookie with the right foot. Kickoff away, and it's a Cardi party at SoFi Stadium. 27-24. Their first lead of the game with 2 seconds left. Joshua Cardi drills the game winner. It could prove to save the season.
So you got the missed kick Then you had a Ronnie Bell drop, and eventually the Rams were able to cash in, and they were able to win that game, and it does save their season because the Niners, they fall to 1-2, which that's a surprise. They lost to Minnesota last week. They lose to the Rams this week. And then the Rams, they turned it around where now they're 1-2, but they play the Bears next week. I'll just give you a few numbers from this one. Matthew Stafford, 221 yards passing and a touchdown. Kyron Williams had 89 yards, 3 total touchdowns. Brock Purdy, 292 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. You would have thought that was enough, but it wasn't. And Jawan Jennings had 11 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. But how about Brandon Ayuk? Got a big contract and hasn't had a big performance. Only 5 catches for 48 yards on Sunday. Stu, what do we got cooking in this one?
Yeah, how confident are you that the Rams can still make the playoffs this season?
I still think they make the playoffs. Now, Cooper Kupp's out next week. Puka Nacua, we know, is on IR, but he'll come on back. This is a team that's suffered a lot of injuries. The offensive line is banged up. But as bad as it's been, assuming they get the win up against the Bears, which I think they will, they're going to be 2-2 after 4 weeks, and they have everything else left in front of them to accomplish for the rest of the way. So I do believe that the Rams will get one of the wild card spots in the NFC. I don't think the Cowboys make the playoffs. The Eagles will. You look at the North, I like the Packers now to win the division. I still think the Lions and the Vikings are going to get in. One team from the South, and then I have 2 teams from the NFC West. Now, the Seahawks are 3-0. I'm assuming still the 49ers get in. But, let's see where the Seahawks are a few weeks from now. So I will still put the Rams in the postseason. But it's going to be close. All righty, next game, Giants and Browns. Let's start off with the highlight this time. Daniel Jones. Usually, he just looks terrible. In this one, he looked pretty damn good. And a big reason because of that, Malik Neighbors. As Malik Neighbors was magnificent in this game, had 8 catches for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Let's listen up to Daniel Jones find Malik Neighbors on a 5-yard strike. This made it Giants 21, Browns 7.
First and goal at the 5. Jones back, looks, fires it into the end zone. Touchdown, Neighbors on the skinny post. Jones looked left all the way. Snap back, Neighbors on the skinny post. And the Giants now lead it by 2 touchdowns with the extra point pending. And Malik Neighbors' neighborhood is a wonderful place to be.
Yes, it is.
It is. And the Browns started that game off with a bang. They forced a fumble on the opening kickoff, and then Amari Cooper caught a touchdown. And it looked like things were going well for the Cleveland Browns, but that wasn't the case. The Giants ended up sacking Deshaun Watson 8 times, and they forced 2 fumbles. Daniel Jones in the game had 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. Amari Cooper, we mentioned 1 touchdown. He ended up getting 2, along with 7 catches for 86 yards. And Deshaun Watson, this line stinks. He stinks too. At 196 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks, 26 yards rushing. But he's only completing 56% of his passes on the season, and he's 30th in the league in QBR. Stu, what's the question here?
The Browns, they have the Raiders next week. What should they do at quarterback?
This is going to sound terrible to say, and I realize that before I say it. But they got to hope that they'll find a legal loophole out of this contract with the unfortunate things that go on off the field with Deshaun Watson. Because on the field, this dude is just shot. He has not been a good quarterback since 2020. The line in Cleveland has taken a turn for the worse. But this was a team last year that made the playoffs with Joe Flacco. And they're not going to be a playoff team this year. We'll see whenever they get Nick Chubb back. You still got Amari Cooper. But Deshaun Watson, that's going to go down as one of the worst trades in the history of the NFL. Because not only did you give up all the assets, you then gave him a guaranteed contract. They're going to have to keep on playing him. But, man, it's ugly. It's really ugly. And it's not just ugly, it's embarrassing. I know they got back in the game, but that was a pathetic start after it looked really good right out of the gate. How quickly that turned is extremely discouraging. All right, finally, not that this was a surprise that the Vikings won with how they've been playing, but it's a surprise how lopsided it was. 34-7, the Vikings smash the Houston Texans. Sam Darnold, MVP. 181 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, has 8 passing touchdowns on the season and 2 INTs. Aaron Jones, who will go up against the Packers next week, his old team. He spent his first 7 years of his career in Green Bay. He'll go back to Lambeau coming up this weekend at 148 total yards against the Texans. And a touchdown. Justin Jefferson found the end zone again. Do the gritty 6 catches for 81 yards and that score. Jonathan Grenard had 3 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. And C.J. Stroud, bad performance for a player who's been really good to start off his career. 215 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Stephon Diggs did have 10 catches for 94 yards. you know what? C.J. Stroud thought he was Brady trying to talk to Caleb Williams. And since then, after he's had a year and now 3 games in the NFL, he showed a little bit of a sophomore slump moment the other day. He did not have a good performance, and the Texans get smashed by the Vikings 34-7. So we wonder now what Stroud will be after trying to give that pep talk to Caleb Williams. Maybe Sam Darnold gave C.J. Stroud a pep talk after the game. But let's listen up. This is the Sam Darnold 4-yard touchdown pass, and this made it 21-0. Minnesota.
Motions to the right across the formation. Sam looking right, swings back to the center, fires, and touchdown! Jalen Naylor! That's 3 for Darnold today, 3 for Naylor this season, and the Vikings lead by 3 touchdowns. It's 20-0 Minnesota.
All righty, Stu, what's the question here?
All right, how concerned are you with the Texans with this poor performance?
It's not encouraging. That's obvious, but they're going to win the NFC South, I would think, or the AFC South, I would think, still. But that's a performance yesterday that it shows you this is a very good team, but they're going to have weeks like that where it just shows how young they are. But who else really impresses you in the AFC South? The Colts? I can't watch Anthony Richardson anymore. I know they won yesterday. The Jaguars, they're 0-2. Let's see what they do after tonight. And Tennessee's 0-3, and Will Levis is a disaster. So the Texans are going to win that division. And we'll see, though, as the season gets along, if this was just an anomaly or will this be a team with the talent that they have, because they do have a lot of youth, but they do have a nice mixture of veterans, the guys like Danielle Hunter and Stephon Diggs, if they will be able to be a team that can take that next step instead of just getting to the postseason and then tapping out like they did a year ago. I know they ended up winning a wild card game and then they lost in the divisional round to the Ravens, but getting better from there. So I look at the Texans, not the end of the world, but it's one of those performances that, okay, now you got to get back to the drawing board and kind of use that as motivation, a little extra fuel to the fire after, you got off to a 2-0 start to the year. All righty, that's No Huddle Offense. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take our final timeout of the day. When we come on back, we will preview the 2, not 1, but 2 Monday Night Football games that we have cooking for you tonight to conclude Week 3 in the National Football League. Update time first. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Well, the Vikings are 3-0 and got some more good news today as tests on Sam Darnold's knee showed just a bruise, no structural damage. The Raiders might make a change at quarterback, with head coach Antonio Pierce saying he hasn't ruled it out yet. Well, the Lions suffered a big loss yesterday with Marcus Davenport done for the season due to an elbow injury, while Chargers rookie tackle Joe Alt will miss some time with a sprained knee. Left tackle Rashawn Slater is already dealing with a pectoral injury, and Rams receiver Cooper Kupp will miss another game due to an injured ankle. Week 3 closes with 2 games on Monday night. The 0-2 Jaguars are in Buffalo to meet the 2-0 Bills. The winless Bengals will host the Commanders. Wasn't that long ago that they were in the Super Bowl, now trying to get back there and also trying to avoid digging out of a big hole to start the season. Jamar Chase said they need something good to happen this evening.
I feel like we need a win just to put under our belt so we can feel relaxed. And just get a win at home. I think that's another good thing that'll be good for us. And, having a full offense back as one whole unit finally, I think that'll be good for us.
Chase will have T. Higgins alongside him tonight. There are 4 games in the Major League Baseball schedule. The Phillies' magic number to clinch the NL East is 1. They could do it with a win over the Cubs. I'm Rich Ackerman.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God. We're back again.
Time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Bella B in Calgary says, Hi, Zach. Would you rather have the ability to see the future or change the past? You can submit a question by tweeting at INF Sports Center at Zach Gelb using the hashtag AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I know my answer to this question still. But what's your answer? Would you rather have the ability to see the future or change the past?
See the future.
Really?
Yes.
I think seeing the future, though, is more difficult. Because here's why. Like, if you're seeing the future, for example, like, let's say, Stu, I tell you, let's do this in a positive way. You're going to win $100,000 gambling. Do you know exactly when you're going to win that $100,000 gambling? Or do you just know that it's going to happen? Because if you don't know the exact date, in a weird way, it could actually be stressful to try to figure out when is something going to happen. And that's in a positive way. What happens if something you get told that you see in the future and it ends up being like catastrophic and a disaster? I wouldn't want that burden on my shoulders.
I don't like that.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's your answer. Like, they could tell me, hey, Zach, genie comes down or whatever. You know, you're done in this world in 10 days. Now, at least I know I got to live my life to the fullest for the next 10 days. But then I have to live with knowing that that's it 10 days from now. So I would rather be able to change the past. Now, I don't have many major
that's
regrets.
my thing. I don't have a lot of things that would change, so I don't know what I would change.
But it's nice to have that
option.
That option, right? It is. So I will say change the past rather than the ability to see the future. And then also it's like you could be a great person. Anything that's negative that goes on in the world, I could then be the great eraser and then wipe it away and then change the past, you know, with that power. All righty. Get into the games tonight. This is a must-win for the Cincinnati Bengals. And if they don't beat the Commanders, they stink. I know this team starts off slow all the time, and they've been able to get through it. You cannot lose to the Commanders tonight. This cannot be. I know the Commanders are 1-1 on the season. They played the Giants, which was their lone victory. This cannot be the coming out party for Jaden Daniels. It just can't be. The Bengals, they should have won last week up against the Chiefs. Hendrickson was awesome in the game. This needs to not only be a Bengals win, but this needs to be a get-right game where the Bengals just totally embarrass the Washington Commanders. I think the Bengals win. 7-point spread. I would lay the number if I was betting on this, and we were 3-0 last week on my picks, and Trista Crick was 3-0 as well, so I'm probably due to lose. So I'd be careful with what I'm about to say in the final 3 minutes of this extravaganza. But I would lay the number with the Bengals tonight. Bills and Jaguars. The 5-point spread is a no play for me. I think this is going to be a closer game than what people think. This is a game that it means more to the Jaguars. You look at the Bills inside their division, the Patriots stink. You take a glance at the Dolphins. They don't have their quarterback right now. And the Jets are a good team, but you play them in a few weeks. This game means so much more for the Jaguars. If the Jaguars lose this game, you know, out of the 4 teams we're talking about, if you tell me the Bengals lose, I think that's the strongest reaction tomorrow. Because they're 0-3 and they had Super Bowl expectations. But if you take the Bengals out of it and then you tell me the Jaguars, the Bills, the Commanders, like one of those teams lose, the Commanders, as long as Daniels is healthy, it's so what? The Bills lose, it's, oh, okay. They didn't take advantage. You know, how did they lose? What does that mean for the offense? But if the Jaguars lose this game tonight, it's one of the more disappointing storylines in football this year. Like, I just don't see a path how the Bengals lose tonight up against the Commanders. So it's tough to me to envision walking into this studio tomorrow and just blasting the Bengals for losing this game and starting off 0-3. But Jacksonville, how they lost in week 1 to the Dolphins when that game looked like they were running away with the victory. Then they lose in week 2 to a bad Browns team. They lose this game tonight. It's not like a bad loss because the Bills are a good team. But it's one of those games where you go, okay, that's just an organization that even when it looks like they were about to get it right 2 years ago, then last year, okay, they were 9-8, but Lawrence got hurt towards the end of the season, so you give them a pass. If they lose this game tonight, it's a total we have to reevaluate the organization. Because Josh Hines-Allen's a great defensive player. You paid Trevor Lawrence. He's not going anywhere. And I like Doug Peterson a lot. I believe in Doug Peterson. But when you start the year off 0-3, if you do, that's tough to defend the football coach. And you look at the Jaguars' schedule the rest of the way, it doesn't get easier next week. You go up against the Texans, and you get a Texans team that's going to be PO'd because the Houston Texans just got embarrassed this past week by the Minnesota Vikings. So they got to win this game, but I think the Bills win a low-scoring, sloppy affair. It's just tough for me to buy into the Jaguars offense. It really is. You got two good running backs in this game in Cook and ATN. But I think Josh Allen makes fewer mistakes in this one tonight. I'll go 23-20, where the Jaguars cover if I had to make a pick on the spread. But I think the Bills are going to win the game tonight. All righty, that will do it for the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Fun show today. Big thanks to Will Johnson from the Michigan Wolverines making his second appearance on the show. So we appreciate and thank him. And he says he's going to be okay. He doesn't know if he's going to play this weekend. He's planning on it, but he doesn't know for sure. He's taking it day by day. And he said Alex Orji, the quarterback at Michigan, which we really haven't seen him throwing the ball, 32 yards in a victory up against USC. He said his arm is just as good as his legs, and he's confident in the quarterback putting that on full display soon. So we appreciate Will Johnson for stopping on by. Big thanks to Moist Mike as well, and Stuart Kovacs for producing this extravaganza. All right, enjoy the two games tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Jaguars and Bills, and then 8:15 p.m. Eastern, Commanders and Bagels. Big thanks to each and every one of you for listening, calling, and interacting with the show today. You can always find me on social media, Twitter and Instagram. Give me a follow at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. This is the Zach Gelb Show. I'm out. Bye-bye. Peace.